Renome. One of those rare instances of a label that's active in wartime that is still very much active to this day. You may be familiar with them as the publisher of the Rocky Volevich album Srni Bombarder and Post-War Baya. They also are notoriously protected over their copyright. Sometimes. Today, we'll be looking at 3 cases of lost media surrounding the label. First, we'll start off with Miško Cvjetić, a figure that I'm not truly familiar with. I do have the 3 CDs that he released under the label, though it only seems like 1 CD works. One of his earlier known works is from the war and is also one of Renome's earliest releases. Pesma o Zoranu, the 10th release from Renome and released sometime in 1993, is one of those albums that aren't technically lost. Currently, only side A has been uploaded online, and coincidentally, these songs are also featured in Miško's Patriot albums, which isn't surprising since Patriot is allegedly a sublabel of Renome. While we can assume that the masters are safe and sound in their studio, I don't think they have it in the best condition. Now, I would like to demonstrate an example of this, but unfortunately, if I play these songs, I'm going to get struck down from Renome themselves. But trust me on this one, the songs from Pesma o Zoranu in my album Radovane Srpske Sine sound awful, and that album was released sometime in 2008, so you can only imagine how the master sounds now. That is, if these actually did come from the masters. If you haven't been able to tell from my previous videos, the preservation of Yugoslav war music is in a completely different ballpark than preservation of music here that came from the same era. So we can only hope that Renome still has it. It's not all doom and gloom, however. There is an alternative, but it's with a catch. I'm sure there's someone out there with a tape, digitizing software ready to boot up, and as tempting as it is, don't upload it here. Not naming names, but I've heard if you do as so much as to upload 1 song, Renome will personally strike your channel. And, I mean, as anime archivist Kenny Lauderdale once said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Upload to alternative sites. For now, at least on YouTube, we'll just have to wait on Renome to upload the rest of the songs. Now, Renome does seem to have some exceptions with this rule. For example, there are re-uploads of Zoran Kulina's Garo Garo, and it seems like if you do re-upload that album, you won't get taken down, at least initially. And I'm sure it's for other Renome albums that Renome probably has forgotten that they've even released. And this album is no exception. You might be familiar with Prva Linia, not that one, this one. Their album, Ako Padnem Brate Moj, is mostly available online, and it seems that re-uploads are seldom taken down, despite the copyright being owned by Daredo. Though, as a side note, I believe that company is more of a middleman that gives you rights to whatever you own. Currently, only 3 songs are missing, though it's not to say that the files that are currently uploaded to YouTube are good. As a matter of fact, it needs a little bit of TLC. If you have the album, I'm sure you can re-upload this with no problems. I'm kind of surprised that I was actually going to cover this. Initially, I didn't feel obligated to cover it, other than this album being a recent discovery. That was until someone pointed out that the only proper scan was a low-quality blurry picture, and that only a handful of songs had been leaked online. Let me explain the history of this one. So for a good decade or so, it was thought that the Masks in the Sky guy, also known as Miro Sembarats, only released 2 albums under Superton, that being Puche Pushka Nasred Semberie, the album with that infamous song, and Srbi Svoju Državu Stvoriše. That all changed about 3 years ago when another album was added to the Discogs database. That album being 1996's Kako da te sutra zovem. Its origins seem to be lost to time, and the current scan of the album seemed to be at the demand of a very impatient Discogs mod. Now, I won't show any screenshots for privacy reasons, but if you have an account, click on that edit release button, you won't regret it. This album only has 3 songs available, and if you know where to go, you can actually find FLAC versions of them. And there's some good news and some bad news with this situation. Now, the good news with this album is that it's not entirely lost. The bad news is that, well, the people who have this album are most likely private collectors who are not interested in providing any updated scans, pictures of the cassette itself, or even releasing whatever's on the tape in whatever condition. Hey private collectors, did you know that your tapes will stick together and become unsalvageable if you don't play them at least once a year? Time is ticking. Anyways, for now, that's all we have regarding the tape. Again, both of these tapes seem to fly under Renome's radar, so if you have it, upload it. Even if you can't clean up the tape, just upload what you got. Yes, even if it's in terrible condition. Just upload it so at least we have a sample of what these songs sound like. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.